Welcome everyone to episode 6.
Is it 6?
So
You're screaming. You don't need to scream. I have the
We're
name.
not.
لكن وكيلي لا
I did. It's minus 16 بس انت عم تصرخ. لأنه عم تحكي مع بس شو اسمه بالقاهرة.
Okay, 1 2 يلا. Let me just say that the producers and the guests of the show, not me or Adel, have actually selected a book that Adel and I co-edited titled Mediating the Arab Uprisings, which we sort of thought it was weird because we actually published it, we co-edited it. So can we take a look at the book, Hatim? Yeah. So basically, we're just gonna say a couple words. We'll let Hatim maybe say a couple words about this. And then move on, because it's something that we are planning actually on updating.
So this is the classic volume, Mediating the Arab Uprisings, edited by our very own Adel Iskandar and Bassam Haddad, out from Doin Publishing in 2013. You guys got this out really fast. At the time there was very little published that was citable, referenceable, that I could give to students about the uprisings. And so this is one of these texts which right away quickly responded and tried to fill that hole. There's a series of essays, each addressing a series of questions, each one not necessarily just about a specific country, although many of the chapters are country focused. A lot about Egypt, but also chapters about Syria, about the Gulf states. And I can't read every single person's here. We have 16 chapters here, so we could not summarize them all. But this is sort of the question of how to consider what place media had in these uprisings. Beyond sort of media had nothing to do with it, it's all just fluctuations in bread prices and the rollback of the welfare state, and media is not important, or media caused transformations to Arab neurology and then they all realized they were oppressed. There's some really dumb things which some people said at the time, right? So this book was sort of one of these first sort of what is going on, what does it look like right up front, with right out the gate as these things are still unfolding.
Well, in fairness, the book actually came out in 2013. We started working on it a few months before 2013, but what it does is that it looks at that original moment, that moment of the emergence of the uprisings and the sort of developments that took place early on, and it actually captures the euphoria alongside another book that we published, mostly just like with this book, based on Jadaliyya content, and it actually is blurbed by Walter Armbrust and Hamid Dabashi, and includes, as Hatim said, a ton of chapters that I will, that we will probably add to the website, the Nerdiest Show, because we didn't actually plan on adding this. Just wanted to give it a shout out. We might not even include this. But Adel, do you want to say anything before we do our last book?
شو أنا ما بيطلع لي شيء؟
No, because he was the author, and then you can actually say your thing.
I know.
ليش تحكي لك؟
I don't really have much to add except to say that
Because feminism.
I mean, it does address a particular moment in time, and a lot has changed since. But I think one of the important things that we try to do in this book is to make sure that when discussing the Arab uprisings, we were talking about conditions and circumstances that preceded the moment of rapture, whatever that happens to be, whether it's the protests in Tunisia or the protests in Tahrir Square and what ensued, that there were conditions and situations and circumstances that preceded, and in part dealing with how the region is being cut. Contributions are authors discussing how Syria is to be reported, and there's a real kind of tussle over this. So it demonstrates the tension and the contestation that was happening around that time. Nowadays, it's a much more complex terrain, and I'm hoping that as we go through the process of updating it, that we can speak to all of those other complexities that we didn't have the luxury either of time or posterity to speak to. But thank you for including it, guys.
Thanks, Adel. Nadya, do you want to say anything? Since we're getting all nepotist.
This book has several, I think, contributions. This is a book that I teach regularly in several different types of classes, including from both undergrad and graduate, which I think it's rare that a book can actually straddle those two kinds of spaces. I don't know what that was.
I thought about it. Somebody on a horse. Okay, خلاص. Go ahead.
Straddler.
That's saddle, حبيبي, مش straddle. It sounded really good. And so in that sense, it's a really great pedagogical tool for both media studies, but also for other disciplines. And the other thing, which it's great that it's actually been included at the end of this episode, is because that it is an interesting and really, I think, helpful way to the way what Bassam was saying, sort of. It does capture a particular moment with regards to media coverage of the uprisings, but then it actually offers a really interesting way to then link to essentially all of the other texts that we've covered in today's episode, to show how a lot of them, changed, whether it's in terms of the actual sequence of events or in terms of the way that we can think of, analyze, and frame some of these moments and some of these uprisings.
Wow, so we are actually doing this. We might as well read a couple of the chapters very quickly. Mediating the Arab Uprisings. After the introduction, there's a chapter Mediating the Arab Uprisings, and they're by different authors, so I'm not going to read the authors' names. Framing Syria, Ajam Industry from Fuad Ajami, Al Jazeera's Revolution, with the R in parentheses, Egypt's Revolution 2.0, the Facebook factor, Youth Media and the Art of Protest in North Africa, Seeds of Revolution, the mythologizing Khalid Saeed or Saeeds of Revolution, demythologizing Khalid Saeed, and then the marriage of sexism and Islamophobia, remaking the news on Egypt, Free at Last, Egypt's media after the revolution, the materiality of virtuality. Jesus Christ, who is this? Oh, it's Layla. The materiality of virtuality, reporting on Arab revolutions, pioneer bloggers in the Gulf Arab states, beyond mullahs and Persian party people, the invisibility of being Iranian on TV, covering Iran's ninjas, Palestine in scare quotes from the New York Times grammar book on being wrong on Iraq, in memoriam Anthony Shadid, which is a tribute to Anthony Shadid that we included in the book, and so on and so forth. I mean, this is actually pretty rich, and I hope that we get a chance to not update it, but actually to write and author or edit the next version or the next volume, which was always the intention, but we got all busy and stuff. So we are now finished. Well, we have one more book. I'll let Hatim introduce it.